Right now, a dangerous heat dome is shattering hundreds of temperature records across the United States. Temperatures near 110 degrees in the desert Southwest, 90-degree readings as far north as South Dakota. And buried inside this extreme heat wave, two powerful storm systems are forming that will bring tornadoes, damaging hail the size of baseballs, and blizzard conditions to parts of the Northeast, all within the next 72 hours. But here is the part that should really get your attention. This is not the main event. A major pattern change is developing that could unleash widespread severe weather outbreaks as we push into early April. And I am going to show you exactly when, exactly where, and exactly what you need to prepare for. Stay with me, because at the 5-minute mark, I am going to reveal which specific cities are in the direct path of the most dangerous storm window this week. And if you are watching from anywhere east of the Rockies, you absolutely need to hear what is coming around the 3-minute mark first. Before we go any further, drop a comment right now with the city and state you are watching from. I want to know where you are, and I will make sure your area gets covered in the detailed forecast breakdown coming up. If your city is not mentioned in this video, tell me in the comments and I will personally respond with what is heading your way. Now let me tell you something. I have been tracking weather patterns for years, and what is happening right now across the United States is something I have never seen this early in the season. We are talking about nearly 100 record-breaking high temperatures being tied or shattered today alone. Not next month, not in summer, right now, in the middle of March. And by the time we get through Sunday, that number could climb past 200 broken records from the mid-Atlantic all the way to the West Coast. Here is a number that will blow your mind. Some of these records are not being broken by 1 or 2 degrees. They are being shattered by 10 to 15 degrees above the previous daily record. That has never happened at this scale in March. We are in uncharted territory. But here is the twist that nobody is talking about yet. This record heat is actually the fuel that is going to power the severe weather over the next several days. The hotter it gets, the more energy these storm systems have to work with. And that is a problem because what is coming is not just one storm, it is 2, back to back. And the second one could be significantly worse than the first. Let me break this down for you, starting with what is happening right now across the country. We have an incredibly intense ridge of high pressure built across the desert Southwest. Above that, the jet stream has pushed way up to the north, much farther north than we would normally see for this time of year. This is a setup we typically see in April or May, not the 3rd week of March. Think about that for a moment. The jet stream is behaving like it is 2 months ahead of schedule. Underneath this ridge, temperatures are absolutely soaring. And I do not just mean a little above normal. I mean temperatures that belong in June, not March. Let me walk you through the numbers because they are staggering and they tell a story about what is about to happen. Des Moines, Iowa, 82 degrees right now. That is not a typo. 82 in Des Moines in March. Omaha, Nebraska, 83 degrees. Lincoln, Nebraska, 80 degrees. Ames, Iowa, 81 degrees. St. Joseph, Missouri, 82. Fairbury, Nebraska, 82. Goodland, Kansas, 83. These are temperatures you expect in the middle of July, and they are happening right now in cities where snow was on the ground just weeks ago. Push further south and the numbers get even more extreme. Amarillo, Texas, 86 degrees. Midland, Texas, 85 degrees. Calexico, California, 85. El Centro, California, 85. Borrego Springs, California, 95 degrees. Coachella, California, 95 degrees. And down in the desert Southwest, areas near Phoenix are hitting 105 to 110 degrees today. That is near the all-time record high temperature ever recorded anywhere in the United States in the month of March. Let that sink in. We are approaching the hottest March temperature in the entire history of American weather records. Even the overnight low temperatures are breaking records. Tomorrow morning, the low temperature in Wichita Falls, Texas will only drop to the low to mid-70s. In Oklahoma City, overnight lows in the 70s. Near Chicago, you could wake up tomorrow morning to temperatures in the 60s. That is your low temperature. The temperature that is supposed to be the coolest part of the day, in the 60s, in March, in Chicago. Now here is the wild contrast that shows you just how extreme this pattern is. While the central and western United States is baking in summer like heat, the Northeast is stuck in what feels like the dead of winter, and the difference is staggering. Plattsburgh, New York, 32 degrees. Montpelier, Vermont, 28 degrees. That is below freezing. Lake Placid, 27. Newport, Vermont, 27. Binghamton, New York, 32. Presque Isle, Maine, 31. Bangor, Maine, 34. Rochester, New York, 35. Syracuse, 35. Buffalo, 37. Detroit, 37. Cleveland, 36. Erie, 39. Ithaca, 33. Elmira, 35. Utica, 35. Fort Drum, 31. That is a temperature difference of more than 50 degrees between Des Moines at 82 and Montpelier at 28. 54 degrees of difference in the same country on the same day. In meteorology, when you see contrasts like this, alarm bells start ringing. Because that kind of temperature gradient is what breeds dangerous, violent weather. And that is exactly what we are about to see unfold over the next 72 hours. So let me take you through storm number 1 in detail, and this is the part that could catch a lot of people off guard today. Right now, today, Saturday, March 21st, there is a small but important severe weather threat developing across eastern Tennessee, the western Carolinas, and a tiny slice of northeast Georgia. The Storm Prediction Center has this rated as a level 1 out of 5, a marginal risk. But I want to explain why this low-rated event deserves your full attention. Here is what the atmosphere is doing right now in this region. We have very cold air sitting high up in the atmosphere, what meteorologists call favorable lapse rates. That means temperatures are changing rapidly within a small area of the atmosphere above your head. When you have that set up, the atmosphere becomes unstable in a unique way. Storms that develop in this environment have an easy path to producing hail because there is so much cold air for ice to form in. And here is what makes today tricky. It is going to be a beautiful day across the southeast. Clear skies, low humidity, not the typical muggy, hazy look that usually comes before severe storms. You are going to look outside and think there is no way storms are coming. But that is exactly why this could catch people by surprise. When the storms do develop, they are going to have incredible structure, dramatic cloud formations with blue to white contrast against darker bases. They will look beautiful from a distance, almost artistic. But underneath that beauty, they will be producing hail and strong, gusty winds. Here is the exact timeline for today's severe weather. Between 2 and 3 o'clock Central Time this afternoon, thunderstorms will begin firing along the Tennessee-Kentucky border. Watch the area around Knoxville, Johnson City, and the Cumberland Plateau. By 4 to 5 o'clock Eastern Time, storms will push into the western Piedmont of North Carolina. Asheville, Hendersonville, Hickory, and Statesville, you need to be watching. Between 5 and 7 o'clock, a cell could develop between Greenville and Rock Hill, South Carolina, tracking through the Piedmont near Pageland and Chesterfield. Additional storms could pop near Winston-Salem and Greensboro, North Carolina by late evening. By 10 to 11 o'clock tonight, the threat will be winding down as the atmosphere stabilizes after sunset. The primary threat today is hail, not giant hail, but a lot of smaller hail that could be widespread. Damaging winds of 40 to 60 miles per hour are also possible, and there is a very small, sub 2% chance of a brief tornado or landspout. The tornado risk is low, but it is not zero. Now here is why I am spending time on a level 1 event. 48 hours ago, there was not even a risk of thunderstorms in these areas. If you check your weather app right now, the chances probably still look low. This event crept up on the forecast models, and anytime a severe weather threat materializes that quickly, it means the atmosphere is more volatile than expected. That is a warning sign for what comes next. And what comes next is storm number 1's big brother. Do not skip ahead because this is where the forecast gets serious. Tomorrow, Sunday, March 22nd, the severe weather threat escalates dramatically. A low-pressure system that is currently sitting over Montana will swing eastward, strengthening as it goes. It will develop a powerful cold front that extends from southern Illinois all the way to New Jersey. And along that front, the atmosphere is going to explode. The Storm Prediction Center has placed a level 2 out of 5, a slight risk, across a large swath of the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic. This includes Indiana, Ohio, Northern Kentucky, West Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. Surrounding that, a level 1 marginal risk extends even further. Remember, a slight risk is a level 2 out of 5. That means scattered severe storms are expected. This is not something to take lightly. Now, here is my 5-minute promise delivered. These are the specific cities in the crosshairs for tomorrow. If you live in or near any of these locations, you need a severe weather plan for Sunday. Columbus, Ohio, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Cincinnati, Ohio, Indianapolis, Indiana, Evansville, Indiana, Charleston, West Virginia, Louisville, Kentucky, State College, Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Trenton, New Jersey, Baltimore, Maryland, Wilmington, Delaware, Morgantown, West Virginia, Wheeling, West Virginia, Parkersburg, West Virginia, Lexington, Kentucky, Dayton, Ohio, Springfield, Ohio, Mansfield, Ohio, Youngstown, Ohio, Akron, Ohio, Canton, Ohio, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Reading, Pennsylvania, Allentown, Pennsylvania, and the areas in between all of these cities. Here is the detailed timeline for Sunday's severe weather. Between 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time, instability will already be building across the Ohio Valley. Cape values, that is the storm fuel in the atmosphere, will be climbing to 2,300 to 2,500 joules per kilogram south of a line from Columbus to Pittsburgh to St. Louis. These are impressive instability numbers for a March storm system. Do not let the calm morning fool you. The atmosphere is loading. Between noon and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the cold front will begin shaping up. The first thunderstorms will start firing near Columbus and Pittsburgh. This is where things could go one of two very different directions, and which path we take will determine how dangerous this event becomes. Here is the critical question. Which scenario will unfold? Scenario 1, and this is the one I currently lean toward, is a linear wind event. Storms fire up after lunchtime, organize into a squall line, and sweep through the Ohio Valley and mid-Atlantic with damaging straight-line winds. Wind gusts of 60 miles per hour or higher, large hail with the leading edge of the line. A few tornadoes embedded within the line segments are possible, but not the primary threat. This scenario maximizes the wind danger across the widest area. Scenario 2 is the one that has my attention on the models. In this version, discrete supercell thunderstorms develop as early as noon over Maryland and Delaware. These are individual rotating storm cells that can produce very large hail, possibly 2 inches in diameter or larger, and there would be a significantly elevated tornado risk. The storms would track along the cold frontal boundary, each one capable of producing damaging hail and potentially a tornado. If scenario 2 verifies, we are talking about a much more dangerous event than what the current slight risk suggests. In my opinion, if we see discrete supercells develop, the risk level should be bumped up to include an intensity level designation for large hail. I would not be surprised to see the Storm Prediction Center upgrade portions of this risk area in tomorrow morning's outlook. Either way, here is the peak danger window for Sunday. Between 2 and 8 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Time is when the most significant severe weather will occur. Storms will be at their strongest during this window, with the best combination of instability, wind shear, and forcing along the cold front. By 9 to 10 o'clock Sunday evening, the severe threat begins diminishing. Instability will be getting consumed by the storms and the loss of daytime heating. Through the overnight hours Sunday into Monday, lingering showers and a few thunderstorms will continue, especially across the mid-Atlantic and northern Virginia. But the significant severe weather risk will be winding down. If you are in the Washington, D.C. to Baltimore corridor, your morning commute on Monday could be a wet one as the tail end of this system pushes through. But by Monday afternoon, skies will be clearing. Now, I need to take you to the cold side of this storm because what is happening up north is equally impressive and getting almost no media coverage. A significant late-season snowstorm is developing for the Northeast. This same storm system that is producing severe weather further south will dump heavy snow across northern New England and the Adirondacks of New York. Here is the snow timeline. Tonight, Saturday evening, snow begins breaking out across upstate New York and Vermont as the storm system strengthens. Overnight, Saturday into Sunday, heavy snow develops across Vermont, New Hampshire, and begins pushing into Maine. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan will also pick up snow, mainly around Marquette and Sault Ste. Marie. By Sunday morning through the afternoon, this is the heaviest snow window. Burlington, Vermont will be in the thick of it. Portland, Augusta, Bangor, and Caribou in Maine will all be seeing accumulating snowfall. The snow will be heavy at times beneath the snow line with sleet and possibly freezing rain mixing in at lower elevations. Sunday evening through Monday morning, snow begins tapering off from west to east. Down East Maine will be the last area to see the snow end. Total snowfall amounts: 3 to 6 inches across much of northern New England at lower elevations, 6 to 8 inches in the Adirondacks, the Green Mountains of Vermont, and the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Up to 12 inches possible in the highest elevations if everything comes together just right. Down East Maine could see 8 to 12 inches in a best case or heavy snow scenario. Even areas around Buffalo and Syracuse could pick up a dusting to half an inch. Northern Pennsylvania might see a few flakes in the air. Winter weather advisories are already posted and will likely be expanded over the next 24 hours. Now let me give you the comprehensive temperature forecast for your city. I am going to cover over 270 locations across the country. Listen for your area, starting in the southeast and Gulf Coast. Atlanta, 75 degrees and sunny. Augusta, Georgia, 74. Savannah, 79. Jacksonville, Florida, 78. St. Augustine, 77. Daytona Beach, 72. Orlando, 72. Tampa, 73. St. Petersburg, 71. Sarasota, 75. Fort Myers, 75. Naples, 74. Miami, 76. Fort Lauderdale, 77. West Palm Beach, 75. Key West, 76. Tallahassee, 73. Pensacola, 72. Panama City, 71. Mobile, 73. Biloxi, 71. Gulfport, 72. New Orleans, 71. Baton Rouge, 73. Shreveport, 73. Jackson, Mississippi, 70. Hattiesburg, 70. Tuscaloosa, 71. Birmingham, 73. Montgomery, 72. Huntsville, 72. Dothan, 72. Columbus, Georgia, 72. The Carolinas and Virginia. Charlotte, 65 degrees. Raleigh, 78. Durham, 78. Greensboro, 73. Winston-Salem, 71. Fayetteville, North Carolina, 70. Wilmington, North Carolina, 75. Asheville, 62. Greenville, North Carolina, 77. Myrtle Beach, 74. Charleston, South Carolina, 74. Columbia, South Carolina, 72. Greenville, South Carolina, 69. Spartanburg, 72. Florence, 75. Richmond, 71. Virginia Beach, 70. Norfolk, 69. Newport News, 72. Charlottesville, 69. Roanoke, 70. Lynchburg, 70. Fredericksburg, 70. Alexandria, 65. Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. Nashville, 77 degrees. Memphis, 73. Knoxville, 76. Chattanooga, 76. Clarksville, 77. Murfreesboro, 75. Cookeville, 72. Louisville, 67. Lexington, 68. Bowling Green, 74. Paducah, 76. Hopkinsville, 76. Charleston, West Virginia, 63. Huntington, 65. Morgantown, 51. The Mid-Atlantic. Washington, D.C., 65 degrees. Baltimore, 64. Philadelphia, 60. Trenton, 54. Wilmington, Delaware, 59. Dover, 63. Annapolis, 60. Harrisburg, 51. Lancaster, 52. Reading, 52. Allentown, 48. State College, 48. Pittsburgh, 50. Scranton, 38. Wilkes-Barre, 38. New York and New Jersey. New York City, 53 degrees. Newark, 55. Jersey City, 55. Trenton, 54. Atlantic City, 62. Albany, 38. Syracuse, 35. Rochester, 35. Buffalo, 37. Binghamton, 32. Ithaca, 33. Utica, 35. Poughkeepsie, 49. White Plains, 49. Long Beach, 65. New England. Boston, 52 degrees. Providence, 53. Hartford, 51. New Haven, 51. Worcester, 43. Springfield, Massachusetts, 55. Portland, Maine, 41. Bangor, 34. Augusta, 39. Burlington, Vermont, 34. Montpelier, 28. Concord, New Hampshire, 40. Manchester, New Hampshire, 45. Brattleboro, 43. Rutland, 34. Presque Isle, 31. The Midwest in detail. Chicago, 55 degrees. Indianapolis, 54. Columbus, Ohio, 52. Cleveland, 36. Detroit, 37. Milwaukee, 50. Minneapolis, 57. St. Paul, 58. Des Moines, 82. Omaha, 83. Kansas City, 74. St. Louis, 75. Cincinnati, 59. Dayton, 54. Toledo, 37. Grand Rapids, 40. Lansing, 37. Fort Wayne, 46. South Bend, 52. Madison, Wisconsin, 54. Green Bay, 39. Duluth 34, Sioux Falls 72, Fargo 60, Sioux City 60, Rochester, Minnesota 65, Cedar Rapids 66, Iowa City 66, Davenport 64, Peoria 64, Springfield, Illinois 68, Champaign 61, Bloomington, Illinois 65, Evansville 69, Terre Haute 64, Rockford 56, Topeka 71, Wichita 80, Lawrence 73, Manhattan, Kansas 71, Lincoln 80, Grand Island 65, Kearney 72, North Platte 67, Texas and the Southern Plains, Dallas 74 degrees, Fort Worth 74, Houston 74, San Antonio 72, Austin 74, El Paso 70, Amarillo 86, Lubbock 78, Midland 85, Odessa 81, Corpus Christi 77, Brownsville 81, Laredo 79, McAllen 79, Waco 72, Killeen 77, Temple 78, Tyler 73, Texarkana 76, Abilene 80, Wichita Falls 75, San Angelo 83, Oklahoma City 76, Tulsa 75, Norman 76, Enid 80, Stillwater 76, Little Rock 74, Fort Smith 73, Fayetteville, Arkansas 78, Joplin 75, Springfield, Missouri 75, the Mountain West, Denver 73 degrees, Colorado Springs 72, Boulder 72, Fort Collins 64, Pueblo 70, Cannon City 73, Grand Junction 62, Aspen 58, Durango 55, Cheyenne 70, Casper 66, Rapid City 71, Billings 58, Missoula 45, Great Falls 48, Helena 47, Bozeman 48, Butte 43, Salt Lake City 66, Provo 63, Ogden 64, Boise 57, Pocatello 52, Idaho Falls 56, Albuquerque 57, Santa Fe 61, Las Cruces 73, Roswell 68, the Southwest, Phoenix 82 degrees, Tucson 82, Scottsdale 78, Mesa 81, Tempe 82, Chandler 77, Glendale, Arizona 83, Flagstaff 74, Sedona 75, Prescott 67, Las Vegas 73, Henderson 72, Reno 57, Yuma 83, the Pacific Northwest and West Coast, Seattle 45 degrees, Portland, Oregon 47, Tacoma 42, Olympia 41, Spokane 45, Eugene 49, Salem 46, Bend 47, Medford 55, Sacramento 67, San Francisco 62, Los Angeles 70, San Diego 66, San Jose 63, Oakland 63, Fresno 76, Bakersfield 76, Long Beach 65, Santa Barbara 60, Monterey 59, Santa Cruz 60, Redding 52, Chico 72, Santa Rosa 60, Napa 62, Alaska and Hawaii, Anchorage 15 degrees, Fairbanks -24, Juneau 33, Kodiak 24, Sitka 36, Prudhoe Bay -24, Utqiagvik -17, Honolulu 70 degrees with rain, Hilo 70, Kailua Kona 77. For Monday, as that cold front settles into the southeast, there is a small but real risk of isolated severe weather across South Carolina, extreme southern North Carolina, and eastern Georgia. The Storm Prediction Center has a marginal risk posted for Monday. This is not expected to be a major event, but anyone from Macon to Augusta to Columbia to Florence should stay weather-aware through Monday afternoon. One or two storms could still produce damaging winds or hail as the front pushes through. Now, I want to circle back to something critical about Sunday's storm system because there is a detail most people are overlooking that changes the risk calculation entirely. The overnight low temperatures on Saturday night going into Sunday morning are going to be abnormally warm across the Ohio Valley. All of Ohio will be in the 50s for overnight lows. Near St. Louis, even up near Chicago, we are talking about overnight lows in the 60s. Indianapolis, mid-50s. Columbus, low 50s. These warm overnight temperatures mean the atmosphere does not have to work very hard to become unstable on Sunday. It will already have a head start. By the time the sun comes up and starts heating the surface, instability will build rapidly. This is one of the reasons I think the severe weather window could start earlier than some models suggest. If you are in the Ohio Valley, do not assume you have until mid-afternoon. The first storms could fire as early as late morning, and here is another factor making me pay extra attention. The wind shear profile for Sunday is interesting. There is a ton of kinematic energy across the northern tier of the storm area, but the air mass up there is too dry for thunderstorms. Down to the south, there is slightly better moisture but less wind shear. The sweet spot, the happy medium where you have just enough moisture and just enough wind shear, lands right in that slight risk area from southern Indiana through Ohio and into Pennsylvania and Maryland. That is where the jet stream S southern exit region overlaps with the unstable air mass, and that overlap zone is where the most dangerous storms will develop. One more thing about Sunday. The storms that fire first, the early afternoon discrete cells, those are the ones with the biggest hail potential. When thunderstorms are isolated and not competing with each other for moisture and energy, each individual cell can develop a stronger updraft. A stronger updraft means bigger hail. So the first storms of the day could be producing 2-inch diameter hail or larger. As the afternoon wears on and the storms merge into line segments, the threat shifts more toward damaging straight-line winds. Both are dangerous, just in different ways. If you have vehicles parked outside anywhere in the slight risk area tomorrow, consider getting them into a garage or under a carport if you have one. 2-inch hail will absolutely destroy a car windshield and leave dents across every panel. Insurance claims from hail damage cost billions of dollars every year, and a large percentage of that damage is preventable with simple preparation. Let me also address the aurora borealis situation. Yes, the northern lights were visible across the northern United States last night. We experienced G3 level geomagnetic storm conditions classified as a strong geomagnetic storm. The aurora was visible much farther south than normal. If you missed it last night, there may still be some viewing opportunity this evening as solar activity remains somewhat elevated. By tomorrow night, the aurora viewing chance drops significantly. No additional coronal mass ejections are currently headed our way. Now let me give you the fire weather situation in more detail, because this is a life safety issue. The combination of extreme heat, very low humidity, strong winds, and drought-stressed vegetation has created tinderbox conditions across a massive swath of the country. Red flag warnings today cover an area from the Rocky Mountains eastward into the plains. South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana all have fire weather alerts in effect. Wind gusts are reaching 40 miles per hour in the plains, and along the front range of the Rockies, gusts are approaching 60 miles per hour. Dew points are in the single digits and teens. Relative humidity is dropping into the 5 to 10% range in the worst areas. To put that in perspective, fire behavior experts consider anything below 25% relative humidity to be critically dry. We are at 5 to 10%. A dropped cigarette, a spark from equipment, a downed power line, any of these could start a fire that becomes a raging wildfire covering hundreds of acres in less than an hour. If you live in this fire weather zone, do not do any outdoor burning. Do not use equipment that throws sparks unless absolutely necessary. Make sure you have defensible space around your home by clearing dead vegetation, and have a go bag ready in case evacuation orders come quickly. The extreme heat also carries direct health risks. This kind of heat in March is particularly dangerous because our bodies have not acclimated yet. Going from normal March weather to near record heat in just a few days does not give your body time to adapt. Heat-related illness can sneak up on you. Heavy sweating, weakness, and nausea are the early warning signs. If you or someone near you experiences confusion, a rapid pulse, or stops sweating despite being in the heat, that is heat stroke. Call 911 immediately. Stay hydrated, drink water before you feel thirsty, and check on elderly neighbors and family members who live alone. Now here is where the forecast takes a turn that affects everyone, And this is the part you absolutely cannot miss. Do not click away because what I am about to explain will impact the entire eastern two-thirds of the country over the next 2 weeks. There are rumors circulating about a return of the polar vortex as we head toward the end of March. And I want to address this directly because the truth is more complicated than a simple yes or no, and it matters for your plans. Right now, we have what meteorologists call a zonal pattern. The jet stream is flowing roughly west to east across the northern United States and southern Canada. This is not the setup that brings polar vortex intrusions. For cold Arctic air to plunge into the lower 48, you need an amplified pattern where the jet stream makes dramatic dips and peaks, creating a highway for frigid air to pour southward. Over the next 5 days, there is essentially zero chance of a polar vortex event. The pattern stays flat and zonal. But here is where it gets very interesting, and where the two major weather models disagree sharply. The European model, generally considered the most reliable long-range model in the world, shows the pattern starting to shift by next weekend, around March 28th through the 30th. A trough forms in the west. A ridge builds across the east. This would mean continued warm weather across the southern half of the country, a backing off of the extreme heat in the desert southwest, and maybe some active weather in the transition zone, but nothing catastrophic. But the GFS model, the American model, is painting a dramatically different picture. The GFS shows a significant amplification of the pattern by next weekend, with a big trough plunging deep into the eastern United States. If the GFS is right, we could see a quick hitting lobe of the polar vortex that pushes freezing temperatures as far south as the Gulf Coast. That would be extraordinary for the last week of March. Now here is my honest assessment. The ensemble models, which run dozens of slightly different versions of the forecast and average them out, are leaning more toward the European solution. The GFS ensembles do show slightly more amplification than the European suggests, but not the full-blown Arctic blast the operational GFS is advertising. My confidence in a major polar vortex event next weekend is low, maybe a 15 to 20% chance, but here is why you should still care. Even if the full GFS solution does not verify, a partial version of it could bring freezing temperatures into areas where plants are already leafing out after this extreme early heat. If you have planting concerns, if you have already put out tender plants, if you are a farmer in the southeast, keep this on your radar and be prepared to protect what you have planted. The Climate Prediction Center has below normal temperatures forecast for the Northeast from March 26th through the 30th, near normal in the middle of the country, and the core of above normal heat stays locked in the desert Southwest. Now let me tell you about what I believe is the most important story developing in this forecast, and it is the one that will affect the most people over the longest period of time. As we push into late March and early April, every major model suite is showing a significant pattern change that will bring the return of widespread severe weather across the heartland. And when I say widespread, I am talking about the kind of setup that produces multi-day severe weather events with significant tornadoes, large hail, and destructive winds. Here is the meteorology behind it. Right now, energy from storm systems is riding over the top of our big high-pressure ridge and dropping down on the eastern side. These are called ridge riders, a term we usually do not start using until late spring and summer. That is how far ahead of schedule this pattern is running. But as we move into the first week of April, the models show a classic severe weather pattern locking into place. A deep trough drops into the western United States. A strong ridge builds across the eastern half of the country. The jet stream flow shifts from southwest to northeast across the middle of the country. And that flow pattern does one critical thing. It opens the door for warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico to surge northward into the plains, the Midwest, and the Ohio Valley. The European model already shows the moisture return beginning about 10 days from now. By April 1st, moisture levels across the middle of the country are climbing rapidly. And when you combine Gulf moisture with the strong jet stream energy from the western trough with the wind shear that develops along the frontal boundaries, you get all three ingredients for significant severe weather outbreaks. The dry line setups across the plains, the warm frontal boundaries stalling out across the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley, the massive warm sector that could develop in early April. All of those ingredients are aligning, and they match the same pattern that produced the significant tornado outbreaks earlier in March. I want to be completely straightforward about this. I am not trying to scare anyone. This is still 10 to 14 days away, and the specific details will change multiple times before then. But the overall pattern signal is strong enough and consistent enough across multiple models that you need to start thinking about severe weather preparedness now. If you live anywhere from Texas northward through Oklahoma, Kansas, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and even parts of the Southeast, the first week of April could bring the most significant severe weather period of the spring so far. Start checking your weather radio batteries, know where your safe room or shelter is, have a plan for your family. Do not wait until the watches and warnings are already issued. Let me walk you through what a typical severe weather outbreak in this pattern looks like so you know what to expect and can prepare properly. On day one of the event, the warm front pushes northward through the Ohio Valley and into the Great Lakes. South of the warm front, temperatures surge into the 70s and even 80s. Dew points climb into the 60s. The atmosphere becomes extremely unstable. This is when the first supercells typically fire along the dry line in western Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas during the late afternoon. On day two, the main cold front sweeps eastward. This is usually the most dangerous day. The warm sector ahead of the front is loaded with moisture and instability. Supercell thunderstorms develop along and ahead of the cold front, producing large tornadoes, giant hail, and destructive winds. This is the day that makes national news. The storms can start in the morning in the southern plains and continue well into the night as they push into the Midwest and Ohio Valley. On day three, the cold front pushes into the southeast. The tornado risk decreases but does not disappear. Damaging winds and hail continue to be threats. Flooding rainfall becomes an additional concern as training thunderstorms dump heavy rain over the same areas repeatedly. That is the typical 3-day evolution of a severe weather outbreak in this pattern. Will it play out exactly like this? Probably not. The details will shift. The timing could change by a day or two. But the overall pattern is pointing strongly in this direction, and you need to be mentally prepared for the possibility. I also want to highlight something specific about the moisture return that the European model is showing. When you look at the forecast dew points for around April 1st, you can see moisture values in the 60s building northward through the Mississippi River Valley and into the Ohio Valley. That is significant Gulf moisture that has been absent from the central United States for most of March. The return of that moisture is like adding high-octane fuel to the severe weather engine. And here is one more piece of the puzzle. The jet stream energy coming from the western trough is not ordinary energy. The models are showing a strong jet streak diving southeastward out of the base of the trough. When that jet streak interacts with the unstable, moisture-rich air mass at the surface, it creates an environment where storms rapidly intensify. Updrafts get stronger, rotation gets tighter, tornadoes become more likely and potentially more violent. This is the textbook setup for major severe weather, and all the pieces are falling into place for the first week of April. For those of you who remember the severe weather outbreaks from earlier this month and early March, this setup shares many of the same characteristics. Large, warm sector, strong jet stream dynamics, Gulf moisture surging northward, the warm frontal boundaries stalling across the Great Lakes region. When we saw this pattern earlier in March, it produced significant tornadoes and widespread damage. The early April setup could be just as potent, if not more so, because the available moisture and instability values will be even higher as we get deeper into spring. Now let me also give you a quick look at what happens beyond the first week of April, because the pattern signals do not stop there. The overall big picture for April shows above normal precipitation for the Mississippi River Valley and the Ohio Valley. This is actually good news for the drought-stricken areas of the Southeast, but it also means we are going to see an active storm track through the middle of the country for much of the month. Multiple severe weather events are likely through April and into May as severe weather season ramps up toward its peak. The further west you go toward California and the Southwest, the drier it looks. That drought is going to expand and intensify with time. There is very little in the forecast to suggest meaningful relief for the Southwest before the North American monsoon potentially kicks in during July. That is months of continued drought expansion, and it is going to have serious implications for fire season, water resources, and agriculture across the western states. Now, there is one more critical piece of this forecast I need to cover before we wrap up, and it is something that is getting almost no media attention. The drought. The precipitation outlook for April shows above normal rainfall favoring the Mississippi River Valley, much of the southeast, and the Ohio Valley. That is desperately needed because we have been dealing with ongoing drought and extreme drought conditions across the southern United States. Florida is parched. Southern Texas is bone dry. Parts of the Gulf Coast have not seen meaningful rain in weeks. The April rainfall, if it comes, will be welcomed with open arms across these areas. But here is the catch. The southwest United States is going to get drier. The drought across Arizona, Southern California, Nevada, and Utah is going to intensify and expand through April. Some of that drought could spread through the Rockies and eventually creep toward the Pacific Northwest if we cannot get beneficial rainfall between now and the end of April. Fire weather is already a massive concern right now. Red flag warnings stretch from the Rocky Mountains across the entire plains, from South Dakota all the way down through Oklahoma and Texas. Dew points are dangerously low. Winds are gusting 40 to 60 miles per hour in some areas. The ground is dry from weeks of drought. If you are anywhere in this fire weather zone, be extremely careful with any outdoor activity that could produce a spark. No campfires, no burning brush, no tossing cigarettes. One spark in these conditions could produce a catastrophic wildfire. Let me quickly run through the midweek forecast for those planning ahead. Monday and Tuesday look relatively quiet for most of the country. A shot of cooler air behind Sunday SE storm will stabilize the atmosphere across the east. Temperatures will moderate. It will feel more like normal March weather for a couple of days. But back out west, the Pacific Northwest is going to get hammered again. Heavy snow in the Cascades and northern Rockies. Heavy rainfall in the lowlands of Washington and Oregon. This hits Tuesday into early Wednesday. Then by Wednesday and Thursday, another storm system drops out of Canada into Montana. This is the second major storm I mentioned at the beginning, and it has the potential to be more powerful than what we are dealing with this weekend. The GFS model races this system across Canada on Thursday, limiting the severe weather window to late Thursday evening when storms could fire across the Midwest and Ohio Valley with damaging winds, hail, and possibly tornadoes. The European model slows it down, creating a more organized severe weather risk across the Ohio Valley by Friday. Either way, here is the bottom line for Thursday and Friday. Large tornadoes are possible, large hail is possible, damaging winds are on the table. This will not be as significant as the early April setup I just described, but it could still produce dangerous weather from Texas into the Ohio Valley. And here is the thing that ties it all together. Neither this weekend's storms nor next week's midweek system is the big one. The big one is what comes in early April when the full pattern change takes effect. These current systems are the warm-up act. The main event is still loading. Here is exactly what I need you to do right now based on where you live. If you are in eastern Tennessee, the western Carolinas, or northeast Georgia today, Saturday, watch for thunderstorms between 4 and 8 o'clock this evening Eastern Time. Hail is the primary threat. Do not let the pretty skies fool you. If you are anywhere from Indiana to New Jersey, have your severe weather plan ready for tomorrow, Sunday. The peak danger window is between noon and 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Damaging winds and large hail are the primary threats, with an isolated tornado risk. Charge your phone. Know where your safe room is. If you are in northern New England, prepare for 3 to 6 inches of snow tonight into tomorrow. Up to a foot is possible in the higher elevations of the Adirondacks, Green Mountains, and White Mountains. If you are in the fire weather zone from the Rockies to the plains, please be extremely careful with anything that could cause a spark. Red flag warnings are in effect for a reason. If you are dealing with the extreme heat across the central and western United States, stay hydrated. Check on elderly neighbors and family members. Keep pets out of the heat during the peak afternoon hours. Temperatures near 100 degrees can be life-threatening, especially this early in the season when bodies have not yet adjusted to the heat. And if you live anywhere east of the Rockies, start your severe weather prep for early April now. Do not wait. I want to take one more minute to recap the most important takeaways from this forecast because I know we covered a lot of ground and I want to make sure the key points stick with you. Number one, today, Saturday, there is a sneaky severe weather threat in eastern Tennessee and the western Carolinas between 4 and 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Hail is the biggest concern. Do not let the beautiful skies deceive you. Number 2, tomorrow, Sunday, is the day to take seriously. The Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic face a Level 2 severe weather risk from noon to 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Damaging winds, large hail up to 2 inches in diameter, and isolated tornadoes are all possible. Columbus, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Baltimore, and Philadelphia are all in the threat zone. Have your safe room identified, charge your devices, stay tuned to local weather coverage. Number 3. Northern New England gets hit with a late-season snowstorm tonight into tomorrow. 3 to 6 inches at lower elevations, up to a foot in the mountains. If you are driving through Vermont, New Hampshire, or Maine this weekend, use extreme caution. Number 4. The heat wave is real, it is record-breaking, and it is dangerous. Nearly 200 records will be broken between today and tomorrow. If you are in the plains or southwest, treat this like a summer heat wave. Hydrate, stay cool, check on vulnerable people around you. Number 5. The polar vortex rumors are overblown for now, but not entirely baseless. There is a small chance of a quick cold shot next weekend. If you have already started planting, keep an eye on the forecast updates. Number 6, and this is the biggest one. Early April is setting up for a major return of widespread severe weather across the central United States. The pattern change is real. The models are consistent. If you live anywhere from Texas to the Ohio Valley, this is the time to prepare, not react. I also want to mention one thing that a lot of viewers ask me about. People want to know how they can stay informed when severe weather strikes at night, when they are sleeping and not watching forecasts. The answer is simple. Get a weather radio. A National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration weather radio will wake you up with an alarm when a tornado warning or severe thunderstorm warning is issued for your county. It costs about $30 and it could save your life. You can find them at any electronics store or online. Set it up, program your county, and let it do the work of keeping you safe when you cannot be glued to a screen. Before I wrap up, I want to give you a preview of what is coming in the next video because there is a major development I am watching very closely. The long-range models are showing a potential clash between the returning Gulf moisture and a late-season Arctic intrusion that could create one of the most volatile and unpredictable weather patterns we have seen this spring. The timing of that clash, whether it happens April 2nd or April 5th, will determine whether we see isolated severe weather or a full-blown multi-day outbreak. I will have the latest model data, city-by-city risk breakdowns, and specific preparation timelines in the next update. Make sure you do not miss that one. And right now, drop a comment below with your city and state. Tell me what the weather is like where you are right now. I read every single comment, and I will make sure your area gets specific coverage in the next forecast. If your city was not mentioned in this video, let me know, and I will include it next time. Every community matters, and every viewer deserves to know what weather is heading their way. If this video helped you understand what is heading your way, share it with someone you care about who lives in the affected areas. Send it to your parents, send it to your neighbors, post it in your local community group. Weather awareness is the single most powerful tool we have for saving lives, and getting the word out before these storms arrive is something you can do right now, right from your phone, that could make a real difference for someone who does not know what is coming. The weather is changing fast. 2 large storms in the next 5 days. A potential polar vortex scare by next weekend. A historic heat wave shattering records across the nation, and a major severe weather pattern setting up for early April. This is not the time to stop paying attention. This is the time to lean in, stay informed, and make sure you and the people you love are prepared. Stay safe out there. Stay weather aware. And I will see you in the next